Before we go further with the declarations of the Ageless Wisdom, I'd like to share with you the background of how they came into what is now the public domain. It was in 1922 when a gathering of high-grade practitioners received these declarations from one of the masters of the Great White Lodge. And they were brought through from high levels of consciousness and then actually declared in an oracular style. And with it came the instruction that they should be freely available to the public. One of the members of the people who received it was a man called Paul Foster Case, quite well known in esoteric circles, particularly in the United States, though elsewhere too. And he had founded several schools in service to the divine. The most well-known one nowadays is Builders of the Adytum. But the pattern on the Trestle board was, as directed by the master, was for all people, regardless of their affiliations. And so this was in 1922 that this came into the public domain to help increase the evolution of humanity. So now we're coming to the next statement on the pattern on the trestle board. Remember, this is the pattern for the new temple, not a physical temple, the temple of an evolved humanity. And so we will recite it with, "This is truth about the self. All the power that ever was or will be is here now. I am a centre of expression for the primal will to good which eternally creates and sustains the universe. Through me its unfailing wisdom takes form in thought and word. Filled with understanding of its perfect law, I am guided moment by moment along the path of liberation." The keynote of this statement, and as you will begin to understand, is also the keynote of the sphere on the tree of life to which it's related. The keynote of this is understanding. On one side of the tree is Hokmah, wisdom, and its polar opposite and complement is Binah, Binah, meaning understanding. And these three, with the crown itself, Keter the crown, Hokmah wisdom, Binah understanding, form the great trinity, the great triad at the top of the tree, from which all else comes. Binah, understanding, is the intuitive aspect of our higher soul. We've had the wisdom aspect, which is from Hokmah, the inspirational and enlightening aspect from Keter, from the crown, but this is Binah. This is our capacity to understand. Understand is a very interesting word. It literally means to stand under. Although this isn't directly related to this, it's a good example, I think. If somebody is bereaved, if somebody close to them has died or something has happened, that to make them feel downcast? Well, of course, there are people, who are often clever, and they can come out with, why you should feel better or give these kind of things. But far more valuable, as most of us who've lived long enough know, far more valuable is when somebody who has gone through a similar devastation, no two are utterly alike, but when a person can, in all sincerity, say to us, I understand. And you can feel that. They have stood under that shadow. And that is of more value than any amount of theology or new good, think positiveness, is to be with somebody who has gone through that. The fact that they're there actually shows you that you too will be able to pass one day from that shadow, and also that the devastation will actually enrich you, will actually strengthen you, because in time you too will be able to uplift others by saying, hand on heart, I understand. So understanding represents a deep level of profound comprehension. It's not intellectual. It is the soul itself. And so Bina has this aspect of nurture and of nourishment. So if one comes to the images that are used sometimes for the Sephirot, to Bina is that of the All-Mother, the Great Mother. And that's important too, because it's from Bina that the subsequent Sephirot, the remaining ones, the remaining 7, will flow forth. So Bina is the closest in this sense. And where it is the complement to Hokmah, Hokmah is force, power, energy, radiance. Bina is form, encapsulation, enveloping, receiving a force and then giving birth to a form. This is why it's intuition that leads very often to then an activity. And this is why this one says, filled with understanding of its perfect law, I'm guided moment by moment on the path of liberation. Meaning, as we understand something, not intellectualize, not clever talk, but when we truly understand something, we are then taking another step forward in liberation. Because when you understand something, you are liberated from the sense of its ability to hold you back. A liberation means you're freed from the circumstances because you've received, understood, and with the understanding has come insight. And so these supernals, the white radiance of Keter, the pearl greyness of Hokmah, and the deep indigo, it looks black, but really it's a deep indigo, the indigo of Bina. So light, darkness, and then the in-between, the greyness. And it's important to understand that the background of the tree itself, as I've said before, represents the ein, the no thing. But it's important to understand that although usually it's painted black because it's very difficult to do otherwise, in meditation and in visualization, it's envisaged as being indigo, the same colour as Bina. The other two spheres we've looked at, Hokmah and Bina, are not associated with any particular planet. In fact, you won't be surprised to learn that Hokmah is assigned to all the stars. And shorthand for that is the zodiac, but it means all stars. Whereas Keter is beyond all of that, but it is the radiance itself. It's almost as if the stars were pinpricks through which the light of Keter shines. There's an old legend about the night sky. What you're really seeing is underneath. You're seeing the underneath of the floor of heaven. But above there are the great legions, the great angelic hosts. And they carry their spears and the standards and things. And then in salute they push them down. And these pierce the floor of heaven. And that's the stars that one's seeing. But anyway, the radiance that is infinite is for Keter. The stars are its first manifestation. But Bina is all space. And amongst the planets, it is represented by Saturn. Those of you who know astrology will know that Saturn has a very bad reputation as the planet of finitization, of poverty and of sorrow and all these things. But that's only what's called beneath the belt of Saturn. The upper part is pure intuition and understanding. So once Bina is informed by the light of wisdom that came originally from Keter, somebody who's grasped that and can engage with it and is fearless in looking at those issues can then truly say they then do become guided in the path of liberation. When we grasp what it is that holds us, or what has in the past been our stumbling block or our fears, once we grasp that and dissolve it through looking at it fearlessly, so that the wisdom trapped in it, then we are on the path of liberation. And so we'll read these patterns on the trestle board that have come directly to us from the Great White Lodge, from the place of the enlightened ones, who in their compassion have given them to us in this century. This is truth about the self. All the power that ever was or will be is here now. I am a centre of expression for the primal will to good, which eternally creates and sustains the universe. Through me its unfailing wisdom takes form in thought and word, filled with understanding. I am guided moment by moment along the path of liberation. May the grace flowing from the tree of life be upon us all.